Deputy President, I speak tonight with a sense of sorrow and alarm at recent revelations about the handling of domestic violence in the Queensland Police, as uncovered by new investigative reporting by The Guardian. Journalist Ben Smee has taken an in-depth look at the heartbreaking case of Hannah Clark to expose systematic failures and indifference to the urgent problem of domestic violence within the Queensland Police. In early 2020, Hannah and her 3 children were travelling by car to school when her estranged husband, Rowan Baxter, jumped in the car, doused them in fuel and set the car alight before stabbing himself to death. The children were found dead in the car and Hannah later died in hospital. In the media, senior Queensland Police characterised this as an unpredictable and unforeseeable incident. In comments that he later stood aside for making, Detective Inspector Mark Thompson said, I quote, "Is this an issue of a woman suffering significant domestic violence, or is it an instance of a husband being driven too far?" End quote. Police were framing this case as a case of an otherwise normal man snapping and doing something that could not have been prevented. New evidence reveals this couldn't be further from the truth. According to text messages obtained by The Guardian, Hannah disclosed to a domestic violence officer that she was being stalked, subjected to non-lethal strangulation, and that she genuinely feared her estranged husband could kill her and her children. These disclosures were never recorded as incidents or reports in police databases, and therefore do not form part of domestic violence risk assessments. Perhaps this lack of contextualising material explains what police did next. After Baxter abducted one of his children, Leanna, during an access visit, and fled the state, Hannah obtained a police protection order against him. The officers who served the order can be heard on body-worn camera footage coaching Baxter as to how to challenge it in court. One officer is heard agreeing that women, quote, "can make domestic violence allegations for anything," end quote. The officer then turned his body-worn camera off as the conversation continued, which is a significant breach of protocol. The indignity with which Hannah and her children were treated by Queensland Police does not stop there. Internal police documents show that when the homicide investigation began, officers focused less on Hannah's warnings and more on dissecting the, quote, veracity and motive, end quote, behind her domestic violence allegations. But maybe that's not surprising when you consider that the officer tasked with leading the homicide investigation had previously been involved in the case. Following the abduction of Leanna, that officer deemed there to be no imminent risk of harm to the children, who were later immolated by their father, and declined to investigate the matter further. This is a very obvious conflict of interest. Whistleblowers who spoke to The Guardian say the dismissal of women reporting domestic violence is systemic and not isolated to Hannah Clark's case. They highlighted a culture of protecting the reputation of police rather than victims, a belief that reports of domestic violence by women were vexatious, and a failure to properly record and investigate these allegations, even sometimes in cases of death. The treatment of domestic violence within the Queensland Police is a massive breach of public trust, and it has undoubtedly led to preventable deaths of women and children. Fortunately, in New South Wales, we have our first woman police minister. We have a brand new police commissioner who have many challenges and many obligations in those roles. However, it's my hope that in this state, in New South Wales, will come to lead the way in domestic violence prevention and in avoiding the preventable loss of life that comes from not taking these issues and the women who experience this domestic violence seriously.
Mr Buttigieg.